Previously on my channel.
By NVIDIA's own words, GTX 1060 will outperform the last generation GTX 980. Also by their own words, it will be roughly 15% faster than RX 480. So on the newer games that support DirectX 12, the GTX 1060 will have even lower price to performance value. Then we have Vulkan.
What do you know? We're getting between 40 and 60% improvement on Radeon cards at 1080p. We're getting between 38 and 52% improvement at 1440p. And the only card they have tested, we have 11% improvement at 4K. On the other hand, NVIDIA cards even lose performance at some tests. NVIDIA cards don't gain anything and sometimes even lose performance compared to AMD cards. And now we return with new data. Hey there guys, Peter here with another video for you. Following the previous comparison video between RX480 and the GTX 1060, now with the 1060 officially released and benchmarked, and the dust settled down, I can take a look at what we're presented with and actually see how much my arguments from my previous videos actually holds up. So here we go. First off, I want to say that I'm comparing stock reference performance versus stock reference performance. The board partner cards will improve things, and they can only improve things for both cards. So looking at the stock settings is giving me some baseline that will only get better and better. So okay, let's look at the numbers. I will start with the computerbase.de, the German site that does many things right. First off, they have a huge selection of different games using different game engines, different APIs and whatnot. Then they test inside the case. A standard case, it's not a test bench. This basically represents a real-world scenario because if you buy this card, you'll most likely use it inside the case. Also, on top of that, they are recording frequency fluctuations and everything else to see if there's any throttling because of overheating or whatever. But what we care about here basically is the performance. Overall, the GTX 1060 is about 6% faster in both 1080p and 1440p. It is less than the promised 15% from NVIDIA's marketing, but hey, at the end of the day, GTX 1060 is indeed faster overall than the RX480. In many other websites and reviews, we see mainly DirectX 11 games. And even if we see Doom, we see it tested with OpenGL, no matter that the Vulkan patch is actually out. And it really drastically changes performance. So I took a bunch of DirectX 12 and Doom Vulkan results. I took my time and calculated the average performance of each game. Why? Well, if you get the RX 480, I doubt that you will play Doom, for example, with OpenCL, when Vulkan gives you over 20, 30, sometimes 40% increase in performance. So I took some time and arranged the results in this graph. Overall, we can see that the more expensive GTX 1060 is lagging behind the cheaper RX 480. With all tests calculated, the average difference between all titles is about 6% in favor of the RX 480. I would like to aim your attention to this list of DirectX 12 games that are currently out on the market. On top of that, we have this list here of upcoming DirectX 12 games. From it, 10 of them, 10 of the big AAA titles are coming out by the end of this year. So my assumption looking at the numbers is that by the end of the year, those 6% difference in DirectX 12 titles will become larger, much larger. And then we have Vulkan. At the moment, Doom is the Vulkan test that is widely spread, although nobody is using it. The Telos Principles Vulkan support is released but is still in beta, it's still under development, so the benchmarks are inconclusive and cannot really be used as a benchmark of anything. And then we have Dota 2 that is, well, it's Dota 2. But the way more interesting part is slightly below the game titles. We see the Source 2 engine, the successor to the famous and very widespread Source engine. We see the Sirius Engine 4 that will power the new Sirius Sam. We see the id Tech 6 engine. This is the id engine that is powering Doom at the moment and will most likely power Quake Champions. May power other games in the future. And the Unreal 4 engine. All of those engines will support Vulkan. My point is that DirectX 12 and Vulkan are not things from the far future, guys. They are here. And they are here now and will become more and more widely spread. As for DirectX 11, well, I have a huge issue with the tech press in general. I'll start with Techpowerup. When GTX 1060 was released, I screenshotted a Techpowerup benchmark results from the review of the Founders Edition. It looks something like this. There is 7% performance difference between RX480 and GTX 1060. That's fine, that is just as expected. Looking at tested games, they are overwhelmingly DirectX 11, and this number seems in order. However, if I look today at the same review, the same graph, well, it's not the same graph, it looks different. And nowhere in the review I see even the mention that anything has changed. Looking at the games, it's the same games. They haven't introduced or removed any games from the benchmarks. So it's the same games from the few days ago. So why did Techpowerup decided to go back and change their performance tables? I have no idea. Currently they claim 10% performance difference between 480 and 1060 compared to 7% a few days ago. I have 3 questions. First, how am I, as a consumer, supposed to make an informed decision about what product should I buy when the performance graphs get changed a couple of days after they are published? Second, why the hell do I need to combine benchmarks from 5 different sources in order to get some basic representation of modern gaming technologies such as DirectX 12 and Vulkan? And third, how do you expect me to trust most of the technology reviewers when the benchmarks are following the leaked a few days in advance NVIDIA review guide, where the recommended benchmark games and settings are cherry-picked to represent their products in positive light over the other product? It's really nice to see a bunch of the reviews having exclusively NVIDIA GameWorks titles to test NVIDIA graphics cards on. It is really nice to see other titles like Project Cars, where the GTX 1060 Ti outperforms the R9 Fury X, and these are considered worthy of being included in a hardware reviews, because as we can clearly see, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that title's optimization. Of course it is not. Rise of the Tomb Raider, for example, got its full DirectX 12 support in the beginning of July this year, but the game have been used as a showcase of NVIDIA's DirectX 12 performance for quite a while now. So yeah, the bias amongst the hardware press is astonishing. I have not seen a website changing its benchmark performance results a few days after release in order to help a subpar product to look even decently good. But ignoring all of the biases and whatnot, we have the GTX 1060. that is slightly faster in DirectX 11 titles versus the RX480 that is slightly faster in DirectX 12 and Vulkan titles. So basically the question before you is, do you care about the performance of your graphics card this time next year? Or are you just gonna buy a new one this time next year? Honestly, if I have to buy a GPU today, I will buy the RX480 for three main reasons. First off, better support for future games. As we saw, there will be lots and lots more DirectX 12 and Vulkan titles coming in very soon. Second, a lower price. I can still buy the RX480 4GB version for $199, and even though it's a couple of percent slower than the 8GB version, even if that makes it 15% slower than the GTX 1060, that still gives me a $199 RX480 versus a $250 GTX 1060. And again, this time next year, this 4GB $200 RX480 will outperform the GTX 1060 in most of the new games. My third reason is that I tend to keep my hardware for a lot longer than just a year. My current system is 3 years old, and we have seen how AMD cards perform 3 years after their release. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of Nvidia's anti-competitive and anti-consumer practices, but no matter if I like them or not, their products has been top-notch so far. I must say that I have never been so disappointed in Nvidia GPU before. Not to mention so disappointed in the press trying to cover it up. I mean, Jesus Christ. I will just try briefly to acknowledge the Founders Ripoff Edition for $300 and the crazy, even crazierly priced ASUS $320 price tag. For 6%, let's say it's 10% better performance in older titles, $320 ASUS, I don't know what are you smoking. So that's all from me for today, guys. Click the like button if you enjoyed the video, and if you did not, well, the dislike button is right next to it. I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can subscribe to my channel for more videos similar to this one, and I'll see you in the next video.